Okay. So, you know how some people, they collect stamps or, like vintage records?
Hmm.
Well, it seems like you've put together quite the collection of information on the return to duty process
Yeah,
for CDL drivers.
it's
And
a it's a,
let's be real for a minute.
it's a popular topic.
It can feel as overwhelming as trying to like parallel park a semi
Right.
in rush hour traffic.
Absolutely.
So we're going to try to break down this bureaucratic maze
Yeah.
and highlight some surprising things that you might not have
Yeah.
realized.
It's definitely a process with layers, but
Yeah.
but it's crucial for both drivers who need to regain their driving privileges and, of course, ensuring the safety of everyone on the road.
Right, because a single violation of the FMCSA drug and alcohol regulations
Yeah.
can put a CDL driver's entire career on hold.
Absolutely.
So your goal with all of this information is to understand how drivers can get back on track,
Hmm.
navigate the required steps, and what it all means for their future and the safety of our roads.
And speaking of the future,
Yeah.
starting November 18th, 2024,
Okay.
having a prohibited status
Yeah.
in the FMCSA Clearinghouse could mean losing your CDL
Right.
or being denied a new one.
Okay.
Some states aren't even waiting. They've already put this rule into effect.
Wow, so the stakes are pretty high here.
Absolutely.
Remind me again, what exactly is the FMCSA Clearinghouse and
Sure.
why is it such a big deal?
So it's essentially a central database that tracks violations and a driver's progress through the return to duty process.
Okay.
What's fascinating is that it creates unprecedented transparency.
Okay.
Employers, drivers, and regulators all have access to the same information,
Uh-huh.
which makes it much harder to sweep violations under the rug.
That makes sense. It's all about accountability.
Absolutely.
And I guess that's why DOT regulations mandate immediate removal from any safety-sensitive role,
Right.
driving following a violation.
Yes.
So this return to duty process really is a lifeline for drivers who want to get back behind the wheel.
Absolutely. It's a structured path
Yeah.
back to their profession, starting with selecting a substance abuse professional or SAP.
Okay, so this is where the actual process begins.
Exactly. Employers have to provide a list of qualified SAPs,
Okay.
but the driver gets to choose who they want to work with.
Okay, it's like choosing your own doctor in a way.
Right.
You want to find someone you feel comfortable with and who you trust to guide you through this process.
That's a great analogy. And just like a doctor,
Yeah.
the SAP isn't just checking boxes.
Mhm.
They conduct a thorough evaluation and recommend individualized education or treatment plans
Right.
based on the driver's specific situation.
So it's really about addressing the root of the problem, not just
Right.
meeting a minimum requirement to get back on the road.
It's about understanding the why
Yeah.
behind the violation and taking steps to prevent it from happening again.
Okay, so the SAP evaluation lays the groundwork.
Right.
But what comes next? What's the
Yeah.
next hurdle a driver has to clear?
So the next crucial step is the return to duty test.
Okay.
But here's the catch, and this is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
The driver can't actually request this test themselves.
Wait, what? That seems counterintuitive. Why wouldn't a driver be able to initiate their own
Yeah.
test?
It's all about ensuring the process is truly independent and objective.
Okay.
The request has to come from the employer
Okay.
or a designated consortium third-party administrator,
Okay.
sometimes called a CTPA.
Okay.
They're like a neutral third party who oversees certain aspects of the process.
So it's another layer of checks and balances to
Yeah,
prevent
exactly.
any potential conflicts of interest.
It ensures that everyone is playing by the rules and that the results are reliable and trustworthy.
Okay, so let's say the employer or CTPA initiates the return to duty test
Okay,
and the driver passes.
right.
What happens then? Are they in the clear?
So that negative result is definitely a huge step forward.
Okay.
The employer or CTPA will record it in the clearinghouse,
Uh-huh.
and the driver's status is updated to not prohibited.
Okay.
That means they're no longer barred from driving CMVs.
So they can finally get back on the road and restart their career.
Yes,
Sounds like a huge relief.
it is, but it's important to remember that this is a process focused on both rehabilitation
Right?
and long-term safety.
Okay.
There's still a follow-up testing plan that needs to be completed.
Right, because a single negative test doesn't erase the fact that a violation occurred.
Exactly. The follow-up testing plan, which includes at least 6 unannounced drug and alcohol tests
Okay.
in the first 12 months, helps ensure the driver is maintaining their commitment to sobriety and safety.
And this is where the employer or CTPA comes back in, right?
Okay.
responsible for managing these unannounced tests.
And here's something else to consider.
Oh.
Even with a negative return to duty test, the original violation doesn't just disappear
Oh, wow.
from the clearinghouse.
Okay.
It stays there,
Uh-huh.
visible to potential employers,
Right.
until that entire follow-up testing plan is complete.
Wow, so the consequences of a violation can linger for quite a while,
Yes.
even after a driver has successfully completed the return to duty process.
It highlights the lasting impact of these violations
Okay.
and emphasizes the importance of taking the process seriously.
I'm starting to see how this system balances individual accountability with public safety.
Yeah.
It's not just about punishment.
Right.
It's about creating a system that promotes rehabilitation, monitoring, and ultimately aims to prevent future incidents.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
It's a complex system, but it's designed to address a critical issue that affects everyone on the road.
This has been incredibly insightful. It's clear that this process has a lot of moving parts, and the implications are far-reaching.
Absolutely.
I think we've covered a lot of ground here,
We have.
but I have a feeling there's more to uncover.
There's definitely more to explore. We've only scratched the surface of how this process impacts the trucking industry as a whole.
We've been focusing on the driver's experience, but what about the companies they work for?
Right.
How does this return-to-duty process impact trucking companies and their daily operations?
It really puts the spotlight on compliance for trucking companies.
Look-
They can't just turn a blind eye to the regulations anymore.
Right.
They have to be proactive about educating their drivers, providing resources for finding a SAP, and managing that entire follow-up testing process.
So it's like a ripple effect.
Yeah.
A driver's violation doesn't just impact their own career.
Right.
It has implications for the entire company.
Exactly. And remember, those violations
Yeah.
are visible in the clearinghouse
Right.
to anyone who runs a query on a driver. That includes future employers. Right. So companies really have a vested interest in making sure their drivers are following the rules, because a past violation could actually prevent them from hiring a driver.
That adds a whole other level of responsibility to the hiring process. Companies need to carefully screen potential hires to make sure they're not bringing on any unnecessary risk.
Absolutely. But it's not just about avoiding liability or a PR nightmare.
Okay.
Companies that prioritize safety and have solid return-to-duty procedures in place often see a lot of benefits.
Like what kind of benefits?
Well, for one, they often see lower insurance premiums.
Okay.
And they tend to have better driver retention rates.
Okay, that makes sense.
Plus, they build a stronger reputation in the industry.
A company with a good safety track record is going to attract
Absolutely.
and keep better drivers.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears back to the drivers for a minute. We've talked about the long-term impact of having a violation in the clearinghouse. But are there any silver linings here for drivers going through this process?
One way to look at it is that the return-to-duty process, while it's definitely strict, is ultimately designed to help drivers get back on track and continue their careers. It's not about punishing a mistake. It's about providing a structured path back to safe driving.
So it's more about rehabilitation than punishment.
Exactly. And remember how the SAP evaluation can recommend personalized education or treatment. That means drivers can address any underlying issues that might have led to the violation in the first place. It's an opportunity to learn, grow, and hopefully prevent similar situations down the road.
So if we zoom out and look at the big picture, this system is trying to strike a balance between accountability, rehabilitation, and keeping our roads safe.
Absolutely.
It's complicated.
It is.
But it's grappling with a serious issue.
It is.
That affects every single one of us.
You've summed it up perfectly.
Right.
And as technology advances and data sharing becomes even more prevalent, I think we'll see systems like the clearinghouse become even more sophisticated and have an even bigger impact.
It definitely makes you think about how we can keep improving road safety. And make sure drivers have the support they need to stay compliant and make good choices.
Speaking of support, one thing that struck me when I was reviewing these materials was the emphasis on online resources for drivers.
Yeah, I did. There's a lot of information available online,
There is.
including a whole driver's guide on completing the return to duty process?
I think that's a positive step.
Yeah.
It makes the whole process more transparent and accessible.
Okay.
Drivers can educate themselves, understand their rights and responsibilities, and hopefully feel more empowered to navigate this system successfully.
It's like they say, knowledge is power.
Right.
Absolutely. Especially when you're dealing with something as serious as potentially losing your livelihood.
Absolutely.
But even with all this information available,
yeah,
it's still a complicated process.
It is.
What advice would you give a driver who suddenly finds themselves having to go through this return to duty situation?
The most important thing is not to panic.
Okay.
It's serious, but it's not the end of the road. Take the time to really understand the process.
Right.
Talk to your employer, your SAP.
Okay.
And above all, be honest and proactive throughout the journey.
Honesty and transparency are key.
They are.
And remember, you're not going through this alone.
That's right.
There are resources available to help you every step of the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And while it can seem daunting at first, successfully completing this return to duty process can actually be a real testament to a driver's commitment to safety and their willingness to make positive changes.
It's almost like a chance to turn a mistake into an opportunity for growth.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that this whole process is constantly evolving.
Okay.
New regulations, new technologies, and even changing societal attitudes toward drug and alcohol use are shaping how we approach safety on the road.
It's a dynamic landscape, so it's crucial to stay informed and adapt to those changes.
Absolutely.
But no matter what, the end goal remains the same, ensuring that everyone gets home safe.
I agree.
So we've really dug deep into this return to duty process, exploring all the steps and the impact on drivers and trucking companies.
We have.
But before we wrap things up,
Right.
let's take a step back and think even bigger.
Okay.
What about the future of road safety?
So what's fascinating is that this system is primarily reactive.
Okay.
It kicks in after a violation has already occurred.
Right.
It gets me thinking, what if we could shift gears and focus more on prevention?
That's a great point. You're talking about ways to reduce the need for these interventions in the first place, right?
Exactly. While the return to duty process is crucial for addressing violations, we should also be exploring proactive measures to make our roads even safer.
Okay.
Things like advancements in vehicle technology, more comprehensive driver training programs, and even cultural shifts in how we view substance use and its impact on driving.
So it's like a two-pronged approach.
Yeah.
We have the system in place to handle violations when they happen.
Right.
But we're also actively working to prevent those violations from occurring in the first place.
Exactly. And remember our conversation about the role of trucking companies.
Yeah.
Companies that invest in robust driver training, promote wellness initiatives, and foster a culture of safety are less likely to have their drivers end up in a return-to-duty situation.
Makes sense. Creating a supportive and proactive environment can go a long way.
It can.
In preventing problems before they even arise.
Absolutely.
And for drivers being informed about the regulations, understanding the risks involved, and making responsible choices are all crucial steps in staying on the right side of the system.
Absolutely. It boils down to personal accountability and recognizing that we all play a role in keeping our roads safe.
Right.
And that goes beyond just CDL drivers.
Right.
It applies to every single person who gets behind the wheel.
So to bring it all together, we've explored the ins and outs of the return to duty process.
We have.
Delved into its impact on drivers and the trucking industry.
Right.
And even pondered some proactive steps towards a safer future for everyone on the road.
It's been a fascinating journey, and hopefully our listeners now feel better equipped
me too.
To navigate this complex world.
And for those who want to learn even more, I highly recommend checking out that driver guide on completing the return to duty process.
Absolutely.
Mentioned in the source material.
It's a great resource.
It's available online and packed with useful information.
Knowledge is power, and in this case, it could be the key to a long and successful and safe driving career.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious and drive